I will move to item A3 and call the meeting to order, and we'll start with a roll call.
Mr. Allen?
Here.
Mr. McClellan?
Here.
Mr. Melcher?
Here.
Mr. Roth is absent. Mr. Yarger?
Here.
Mr. Wall is absent. Mrs. Heim? Here.
Thank you, Mrs. Gray. We'll move to item A5, revisions of the agenda.
Yes, I'd like to add to consent agenda item E4, the Huntington North High School FFA trip to the National FFA Convention, October 23rd through the 25th, 2024 in Plainfield, Indiana.
Okay. And is there a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to revise the agenda.
And a second? Second. Thank you. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote on the item. And that passes 5-0. So we'll move on to item B1, public comment. We have one person signed up tonight, and that's David Van Gorder.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. So I was walking throughout Roanoke, canvassing for votes, talked to a lot of parents, talked to a lot of community members, and they all basically had the same thing to say. Schools are great, transparency needs help. So I call upon this board and potential future board members in this room to focus on transparency, and let's make everything that we can make available to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else here tonight that would like to address the board? All right, we will move on to C1, a special presentation for marching band and show choir.
Board, I'm glad to have Mr. Pettick, I believe, tonight here to talk a little bit informationally about the HNHS Marching Band Show Choir Festival Disney Competition of 2026. Well, thank you guys for being here tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having us. I'm Michael Pettick, the Director of Bands. This is Mrs. Danielle Webb, one of our choir directors. This is an exciting time for us as we begin to plan for next year, and so thank you for giving us a few minutes of your time. For the spring break of 2026, we are requesting permission to take the marching band and show choir students to Orlando. For the marching band, they will be participating in a Festival Disney event, and for the show choir is a Heart of America event. For this trip, this does occur largely over spring break. We are requesting to miss the last Thursday before break in order to accommodate the performance schedule, but also to ensure that the students are back in time for Holy Week observations. These are nationally recognized performances, so we're very excited that these are things we once again get to offer our students. In terms of sightseeing, of course, Disney World is the big draw. You can't go to Orlando without doing that. We are using Bob Rogers Travel. We have a strong relationship with them. I believe this will be my 5th or 6th trip since I've been here utilizing their services, and we've had just wonderful customer service from them. We're utilizing American Heritage based out of Kendallville, so we're trying to keep as much of keep our money local, as it were. For the Marching Vikes, this is something that is a little different from years past in terms of our housing. We would be staying at 2 different venues, and the reason for this has to do with the logistics of the day. The Marching Vikes would be performing on a Friday at Magic Kingdom, and as such, we get a certain rate as performers for that site at different housing venues, whereas the show choir is performing through Heart of America, which is taking place near Disney Springs, but it is not a Disney-funded event. So they get a better rate staying at a different hotel. So that is why that is on there. That's probably something that I'm sure would draw a question. This does not affect the transportation needs of the students. It does not affect our division of staff or chaperones. One of the services that we have also used in the past is a dedicated overnight security guard to monitor our floors in addition to our parents. This has come in handy in the past when sometimes you have other groups. We're not the only groups in the hotel where perhaps people get off on the wrong floor that are not in a great state to recognize they're on the wrong floor and they need some assistance that goes beyond a parent volunteer in finding their way off the floor. So it is something that I do find very beneficial to provide, even though it is a little added expense for our trip. We expect to have no less than 6 certified staff go with us, and in addition to 20 plus approved chaperones between both the band and choir venues. In terms of funding, yes, there are fees for this. Unfortunately, the world doesn't run on love, it runs on money. The students will be asked to contribute for a portion of this. They have fundraising opportunities through the boosters over the course of the next year, which is why we are asking permission now, so they have time to prepare and plan. The boosters, of course, will work towards providing assistance for those in need, and of course, reaching out to alumni and those who wish to donate so more students can go. Some of this I have touched on, but just included in the package, we do have tour directors that travel with us for these events. These are people to handle any on-the-site needs, so that way we can tend to the students and their performances. I already mentioned the overnight accommodations. It includes the passes to Disney World. And depending on the package kind of determines whether we get 3 or 4 days. The show choir schedule does not necessarily allow them to have a 4th day in the park because their competition is on a different schedule. All of the meals are included in this cost for the students and the chaperones and staff that are in attendance, with the exception of travel on the way to and from Orlando. We intentionally include the food cost in with the fee, so that way no student goes without while we are on site. As you can imagine, the first day there, if it was up to them, they would eat everything they can, and then they would have nothing left for the last day. The hotel rooms for students are quad occupancy, but they do have options to upgrade to triple or double occupancy or room with their parents should they prefer, and that would then, of course, change the rate a little, but we do offer that. Our charter buses and drivers are included. The performance fees for the students and for the ensembles are included with this. And this is also a great opportunity because it gets our students more professional feedback before we do our end of the year ISMA competitions. The final pricing has not been set. Disney does not lock in their 2026 pricing until January. So this is why I've just included a range. I basically took the cost of our trip from 4 years ago and I just added 30%. Just to give us a good estimate. So this is what I would expect to be the high end. But prices can increase if students or parents elect certain amenities, such as, like I said, double occupancy, trip insurance. That is all optional to them, but it can affect their price. And then lastly, some background, especially for some newer board members or those in the audience. This is a tradition for us. The band has had the pleasure of going on a trip every 2 years. It's a nice reward incentive for those marching band students. And this is also reestablishing a regular show choir trip schedule for them. We did this joint trip 4 years ago, 4 school years ago, and it's something we are hoping to continue to do as a way to offer more opportunities for these kids. By doing it together, it lowers the per person rate because we have more people going. It avoids the students having to choose between whether or not they should go on a band event or a choir event. And as I said, this is something we are very excited and hoping to continue every 4 years. And I believe I mentioned this, but yes, we will be asking to miss a school day, but that is to accommodate the performance schedule and the Holy Week, that is the week prior. So, and with that, if there's any questions for either Mrs. Webb or myself, we are happy to entertain them.
I don't think so.
All right.
So board will be requesting your approval for this trip, which you'll find in the consent. You guys, thank you.
All right, we will move on to item D1, an agreement between HCCSC and the Bowen Center.
Yes, what you have in your school board packets that I'm recommending for your approval is the agreement between ourselves and the Otis R. Bowen Center. This is, the Bowen Center will provide credentialed staff members for skill coaches in our schools to serve with individuals who are Medicaid eligible in our school system. Our school board attorney has been over this, Mr. Wiley, and has given his approval, so I'm recommending your approval of this agreement.
Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion on this agenda item?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the HCCSC Bowen Center Services Agreement for 2024-2025 as presented.
Thank you, Tim. And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Matt. Is there any questions, comments, or discussion on this item? Hearing none, we will vote on it. And that motion passes 5-0, and we'll move on to item D2, the Vincennes University Statement of Work Partnership with HNHS.
Board, I've invited our outstanding principal from the Learning Center, Principal Tiffany Drummond, here to present to you board action item. Thanks, Tiffany, for coming.
Thank you. Good evening. What you have in front of you is our annual contract between Vincennes University and Huntington North. This just simply outlines what each party will provide for dual credit. As a district, we offer dual credit with Vincennes for our criminal justice program at the Learning Center, and then also expository writing and world literature at Huntington North. There is no cost to the district. For the students who elect to participate, it's $25 a credit, which is a significant reduction in cost. There's no cost for students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch. So, do you have any questions?
Is this the first year of this, or we've done this in the past?
No, we've done this in the past. Just our renewal.
Anybody else? Thank you, Mrs. Drummond.
Thank you.
Would anybody like to make a motion on the item?
I'll make a motion we approve the Vincennes University Statement of Work Partnership with HNHS for 2024-2025.
Thank you, Tim. And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, we will vote on it. And that motion also passes 5-0, and we will move on to D3, the Fall 2024 ADM.
So we took our ADM count on October the 1st, and we wanted to give you the results of that this evening. Cindy, if you go on to the next slide here, please. Thank you. This is, what you'll notice is our historical data totals. You also saw this in our budget presentation along the way. You can see that from year to year, we're up over about 18 students plus from the previous year that we had with that. When you flip the page here and go to the next one, what's really encouraging about this is that if you take that 4657 number and look where we're at last February, and if Cindy, if you'd flip back to the where we just came from, you'll notice that we're doing making some good trends here, and so we are very encouraged by this number. So the 4748 number is where we're at this fall, which is up over 18. And if you go on to the next slide, Cindy. You'll notice that we have a jump here of about 92 students that we've made up from last year, back in February. So we are very encouraged by this trend data that we have with our ADM. This is not an action item. We're just kind of giving you where we're at today. And we're doing budgeting. This is what Mrs. Smith and I do. We're trying to guesstimate where we're going to be in February. And so you'll notice that 4,700 number is where we're guesstimating we're going to be. But what I'm really encouraged by is how we made up so much of the difference since last February with our numbers. So we're really encouraged by the direction of this. If you follow the trend data, you can see we're doing our best to change that. And so I appreciate everybody's efforts and work in this to make this all happen in our schools with our teachers and our administrators. But I just wanted to share all that information with you and the encouragement we have with the trending data with our student enrollment. So thank you.
It's great news.
Mr. Trout, could you explain why it's so important?
Yes. What we have is our education fund, this is how it's funded, is on a per pupil basis. And so, Becky, our number this year, if I remember from the budget, what is our number this year that the state's reimbursing us at? Okay, I know you are. I'll delay here. So, yep. Yep. And so yep. Yeah, $7,200 per student. So if you look, we've been trending down 50, 75, 100 students per year, and that's a hit in the neighborhood of $700,000. So to reverse that trend and go the other direction by 20 year to year, but over 90 from there, you're talking a good $500,000-$600,000 in additional revenue. Plus, if we didn't lose the $700,000, we are making some inroads into our student enrollment. Now, the question becomes, how do we continue this trend data and with this instead of where it's at? Because you can see this right here on this chart right here in the spring of 2018, we were at 5273. We had a little bump the following year at 5253 or 5352, excuse me, but then you'll see a steady downward trend from that. And so what we're trying to do is through various aspects of what we're trying to do marketing wise with our district is try to help that. But I'll tell you, we have some great schools with some great teachers and administrators, and that by itself is what's causing most of this trend data to happen. And so with the academic performance indicators that we've been recently sharing with you, $7,200 a student is significant increase in our enrollment and our bottom line for our funds, especially when you compare from last spring to today. Up and over 90, 92 kids is a big deal. So I hope that answers your question, Mr. Allen. Yep.
Mr. Trout, can you also explain how we have 0.24 or 0.48 students? My recollection of anatomy and physiology is that's maybe not possible. How are those numbers?
Okay, so for some students, you get a percentage if it's virtual. For some students, you get a percentage if it is a student is here with you a partial day and not a full day. And so that's when you figure all those students in that are either in some level of partial day. That's why you do not get a round whole number there.
Okay.
So some students are with us X number of periods a day. Some students are with us full day. Some students we get a percentage on because they're with us with virtual school. So that's how you come up with the point, whatever process on that chart then.
Okay.
Okay?
That makes sense.
Okay.
Is there any other questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Yes, in your consent agenda, I'm going to focus you in on a couple of pieces here this evening. I'm going to jump around here a little bit for this to make sense. On E8, we have posted for you 2 additional job descriptions. As you know, since the start of the school year, We have been running with not a full staff by any stretch of the imagination. We've been down at some point or other 3 staff members out of our business office. Today, what I'm seeking your approval on is the accounts payable, accounts receivable specialist, and also the payroll HR assistant. And so those 2 job descriptions are helping to fill 2 of the 3 positions that we were down since the start of this school year. If you go to the personnel report on E6 to match those 2 up, we're recommending 2 people for you this evening for employment. For the accounts payable, accounts receivable specialist, it's Melissa Woost. And for the payroll human resources assistant, it's Brett Boxell. So we are thrilled with both of them. They come highly qualified, highly recommended, and I'm really excited. Missy starts with us this week. Brett will start on November the 1st, if approved here. Your field trip request, I have mentioned those to you. You'll see there in E4, the Huntington North High School Marching Band and Show Choir request that was presented to you this evening. We're also recommending here E7 is additional paraprofessional for preschool at Lincoln. Our preschool programming continues to grow at a very rapid rate. They're in need of some extra hands and support in there, so we're requesting that. Just for an FYI, this preschool program is worked itself to the point where it's self-funded. And so we can keep that out of the educational fund. They're doing such a great job to meet the Paths to Equality recommendations from the state of Indiana. And so Mrs. Lahr, who leads that as the principal, has just done an absolutely outstanding job. Requesting donations this evening, totaling $124,938.81. You can see that there are several there. This evening, I'm not going to read all of those to you for in that, but I will highlight a couple of them for you. Permission, with the robotics, you can see where we're at there. And then the STEM integration grant that we got for our K-12 buildings is significant there too. So the K-12 STEM integration grant, $68,000 plus, and then the second grant is the robotics for almost just a little shy of $44,000. So those grants coming from the state are also incredibly valuable. Also like to just shout out to O'Neill Steel, who's donated almost $85 worth of steel for our welding at the Learning Center, which continues to also expand. So a huge thank you to them. And I could go through all of those. You can see that we've had a donation of $1,000 from Edward Jones for the Riverview Singers. We got a third donation of $1,700 for robotics, again, to be used for competition for our robotics team. So a thank you to them. $6,000 from Brenton Rank. I hope I said that right, to support students at Salamone, which is amazing. And Scipio has donated $500 to be used for robotics teams at Salamone. And so you can just go on and see so much of what's being done. Donors choose there for FFA programs and then items for Lincoln. So we're just very blessed. Last there, seeking your approval on is for the accounts payable and payroll voucher register. So I'm seeking your approval of those items under consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Trout. Would anybody like to make a motion on the consent agenda?
I make the motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Gary. And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Matt. Would anybody like to pull an item and vote on it separately? And is there any questions? Hearing none, we'll vote on the consent agenda as presented. And that motion passes 5-0. We'll move on to F1, the August 2024 financial reports with Mrs. Smith.
Thank you. Board Superintendent, I bring to you this evening the August 2024 financial statements, and just wanted to kind of remind the board and the public of why we're just now bringing August versus bringing it last month. And we, just to remind you, we went through a software conversion, and it started in live the month of August, and then we had some transitions, as you just heard, in our office. So we wanted to explain that is why, and we will be back on track starting next month. So bring to you this August. August was a 3 payroll month. So of course it went all the way to the end of the month. But here we have for you our education fund, and in our education fund you'll see the basic grant, our tuition support revenue that Mr. Trout was just talking about is derived from our ADM, our average daily membership, and that is our revenue that we get on a monthly basis that goes right into our education fund. And then we get a little bit of miscellaneous revenue in there, and you'll see our totals for the month and our year-to-date totals. And then the bottom portion is our expenditures, and that is our expenditures. Of course, you see the majority of our expenditures for our education fund are salaries and benefits, which is over 97% in our education fund. So you'll see that for the month, and then some ancillary additional supplies, travel, those type of things that are done through the building level. And then you'll see the charts on the right-hand side that showcase what the data says on the left. And then at the very bottom, you'll see our fund ending balance of a little over $14 million, subtracting out the outstanding purchase orders, and then you'll see that balance there. So we're right on target for this time of year. And you'll see on the little box that you see on the right-hand side that has a blue highlight, that shows you the percent of the budget year that's expended. And then below that, it shows you the revenue and the expended in the budget that has been expended for the year. So that's one thing that we look at in the business office and compare to make sure, okay, what time of year are we? How are we doing on our revenue that we anticipated coming in? And then where are we on our expenditures? And we're right on target for our education fund. And then the next fund, I'll go on to that. That is our debt service fund. You won't see any action here for the month of August, which is customary. The main action that happens in this fund is local property tax revenue that comes the main part comes twice a year, and that is June and December. And then the expenditures also are paid out in June and December, and that is paying our debt that we have per the amortization schedule. So that's why this continues to be the same numbers as you've seen at the July statements. So right on target here. Next, you'll see our operations fund, which is our other main fund in conjunction with our education fund. And this is where we do the majority of all of our overall arching operations of the district. So that is everything from our transportation department, our maintenance, our central office, all those different areas are paid out of this fund. So you'll see the revenue that comes in from this fund also the majority is local property taxes that come twice a year. And then we do have some other miscellaneous taxes, local income, option income tax, and then some interest from our accounts comes into this fund. Then you'll see the expenditures for the month of August, and like I indicated that we had 3 payrolls in the month of August. So that's why if you compared August to July, or even a main month of the year that was not 3 payrolls, you'll see that number higher than those others. But that is customary for this time of year. And then you'll also see at the bottom our year-to-date summaries with our balance, our fund balance a little over $4 million, and then some outstanding purchase orders, which are common this time of year, where we might have some professional services or anything, utilities or supplies that are outstanding that will be paid in the next 30 to 60 days. And then you also see the graphs on the right-hand side representing that data. And we too are right on target for our operations fund at this time of year. And then our rainy day fund, And as you'll see, some year-to-date expenditures in this fund, and but we were right on target for this fund. We had an appropriation of $1.5 million, and this is the appropriation that we're utilizing for the main office renovation for the district. And you'll see that year-to-date there, and we plan to spend the rest of that money through the end of this year. So you'll see down at the bottom for our cash balance, we're right on target for that. And we anticipate the ending balance after the project's done a little over $2 million, depending on how our year end ends up with our other funds. And then we have two more for you here. We have our food service fund. And you'll see our regular revenue that comes in from our kiddos that are paying kiddos, and then also for our federal and state reimbursements that we receive dollars for. And then our expenditures for the month is a little over $316,000 for the 3 payrolls. And then moving on down, we're right on target with our year-to-date summary and our fund balances for this fund. And if you recall, we had to right the ship for this fund also in the past, where we had some excess funds, and by law we were only allowed to keep a certain amount of fund balance in this fund. Food service has been great at working toward meeting that requirement, and we're right on target with that requirement now. So I just wanted to add that for the board and for the public. And then we have, last but not least, is our Curricular Materials Fund, 0900. And this is our fund where you don't see a lot coming in. We have just some miscellaneous fees that do come in through the district for repair and maintenance of those type of things for devices and some other fees. But overall, of course, the legislative session changed last year, where it indicated that we do not charge for regular textbook rental anymore. And so we utilize this fund as we have in the past for general supplies that meet the curricular materials rules and regular adoptions and things like that. So we have a very healthy balance in this fund. And just a reminder, in 2025, this fund will go away. What I mean by that, the 0900 fund will not exist, and the state legislative session made Indiana code where we are have to move this from this fund that was by itself into our education fund. However, they have created different fund account numbers where we can keep track of that. So while we're doing negotiations and those other types of things out of our education fund, we'll be able to set aside this money that is for curricular materials. So we'll make sure that we showcase that during our all of our endeavors starting in 2025. And that is all that I have for the August financial statements. I'd be happy to answer any questions. If not, I would ask the board for approval as presented.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Does anybody want to make a motion on this item?
Motion to approve the August 2024 financial reports as presented.
Thank you, Matt. And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Carrie. Is there any questions or comments before we vote on it? Hearing none, we will vote on the item. And that item passes 5-0, so we'll move on to item 2, the adoption of the 2025 Budget Form 4 resolution.
Thank you very much. Just to remind the board and the community that this is the final step of 3 major steps that are required by law for our budget. And the first step is when we have a budget work session and ask the board for permission to advertise those budgets. We do that at one board meeting. Then a minimum of 10 days later, then we hold our next board meeting. And at that next board meeting, we hold a public hearing So it gives the public the opportunity to speak on the budgets that we are advertising. Now, this is the third step where then we ask the board for adoption of the budgets. So we have several different requirements tonight, and I'll just briefly go through them. None of the numbers have changed from the last two board meetings and what was advertised and published, both on the Indiana Gateway public transparency site and also on our district website. So here you'll see the resolution for the Form 4, and this has the adopted budgets, the budget amounts that we're asking for adoption for this evening, and those have not changed. And our main funds that we're asking for budgets are debt service, education, and operations. And you'll see this year we did not ask for a budget for our rainy day, since we already took care of that. And you also see the column for adopted tax levy. That's the property taxes. And you'll see the two funds that do have property taxes associated with them are debt service and operations. And then the estimated tax rate that goes along with these budgets and estimated levies. So I would ask for the board to approve this Form 4 as presented this evening and for the past two board meetings.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Is there a motion on item F2? Thank you, Tim. And is there a second?
Oh, hold on, I ain't done.
Oh.
I wasn't lit up.
Oh, sorry.
I make a motion, we approve the 2025 budget, tax rates and levies, Form 4 resolution as presented.
Okay, now thank you, Tim. And is there a second? Thank you, Gary. Is there any questions? All right, hearing none, we will vote on the item. And that motion passes 5-0. We'll move on to item 3, the adoption of the 2025 Capital Projects Plan Resolution.
Thank you. Just a reminder with this is our capital projects plan that was presented, advertised, and held a public hearing at the last board meeting. So this is the customary resolution that goes along with that capital projects plan that is advertised on our website and also the Indiana Gateway Transparency site. And we'd ask for this resolution to be approved this evening as presented.
Thank you. And is there a motion for item 3?
Motion to approve the 2025 Capital Projects Plan Resolution as presented.
Thank you, Matt. And a second? Second. Thank you, Gary. Is there any questions on item 3? Hearing none, we'll vote on this item. And that motion passes 5-0, so we'll move to item 4, the adoption of the 2025 Bus Replacement Plan Resolution.
Thank you. Similar to our last item, to our capital projects plan, we're required to have a bus replacement plan. This too was also presented, advertised, and held a public hearing at our last board meeting. And this is also advertised on our website and the Indiana Gateway Transparency site. And we would ask the board for approval of the 2025 Bus Replacement Plan Resolution as presented this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Is there a motion on the Bus Replacement Plan Resolution?
I make a motion to approve the 2025 Bus Replacement Plan Resolution as presented.
And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Carrie and Tim. Is there any questions on this item? Hearing none, we'll vote on this item. That motion passes 5-0, so we'll move on to item 5, the approval of the resolution to reduce the 2024 budgets.
Thank you very much. Just an explanation of this. I know that we've been talking about 2025 budgets all this evening, so you wonder, oh, is that a typo? No, it is not. At the end of the budget cycle, when all these numbers go to the state, they work all of our numbers for our 2025's budget. At that time, some districts might fall into where they need some of the appropriation from this year that's left over to fund their next year's budget. So this is a customary resolution that districts adopt just in case when that 1782 notice comes, that draft notice, and if any of our current year's budget need to be reduced at all, meaning that we have excess budget appropriation, then this gives the superintendent and or myself the authority to reduce those budgets for that 1782 notice to go ahead and adopt then and certify our 2025's budgets.
Thank you. And is there a motion for item 5?
Motion to approve the resolution to reduce the 2024 budget if needed as presented.
Thank you, Matt. And is there a second? Thank you, Gary. Is there any questions on this item? Hearing none, we will vote on item 5. And that motion passes 5-0, so we'll move on to item 6, the approval of the resolution to transfer funds from the Education Fund to the Operations Fund in 2025.
Thank you. Just a reminder, back in 2019, the state changed how our funds were established. So we used to have an old general fund, we used to have a capital projects fund, a transportation operating fund, and a bus replacement fund. All of those were separated and combined, so to speak, into 2 funds. There was 4 categories in our old general fund. The first 2 categories stayed in the general fund, and stayed in from the general fund into the new education fund, directly aimed toward instruction. The other 2 categories, along with the capital projects fund, transportation operating fund, and the bus replacement fund, all along with those other 2 buckets, came over to the operations fund. When that happened, the expenditures that were paid for salaries and benefits out of the old general fund were funded from the state tuition basic grant monies. That portion still goes 100% into our education fund. So the Indiana Code adopted legislative information that allows districts to transfer up to 15% of those dollars to fund what got moved into our operations fund. So this is a customary resolution that we're required to adopt every year, allowing that transfer of up to 15% from our education fund tuition support to our operations fund to fund those buckets that moved into that new fund.
Thank you. And is there a motion for item F6?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution to transfer funds from Education Fund to Operations Fund.
Thank you, Tim. And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any questions? Thank you, Mrs. Smith.
Thank you.
I think you get the award tonight for the most line items. Hearing no questions, we will vote on the item. And that item passes 5-0. So we'll move to item F7, a service agreement with Baker Tilly.
Yes, Baker Tilly provides services for us as a school district in several categories, not limited to, but I'm just going to read a few of them to you: debt issuances, budget support and analysis, continuing disclosures. They help us with a lot of different other opportunities that we look at each and every year. Through that, whether it be general municipal advisory services, security issuances, like I said before, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm asking for your approval of this agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Trout. Would anybody like to make a motion on item F7?
Motion to approve the HCCSC and Baker Tilly Master Service Agreement and Scope Appendix for approval.
Thank you. And is there a second? Second. Thank you, Gary. Is there any questions or comments on item F7? Hearing none, we will vote on it. And that item passes 5-0. We are in the home stretch. We'll move to item G1, HNHS lighting, ceiling, PA, and piping project.
Mr. Yarger and Board, tonight as a board action item, we've invited Terry Thornsbury back. Remind you, as a part of the 2022 bond and the Huntington North renovation, we bring to you tonight the HNHS ceiling, lighting, and piping project that we received multiple bids on. As a reminder to the board and our public, on 22, we've also renovated in portion the cafeteria, phase 1 and 2 of science, phase 1 of the HVAC, and next summer completing phase 2 of HVAC. This is an ongoing project that we bring to you tonight for ceiling, lighting, and piping at Huntington North. So thanks for being here, Terry.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Burnberry. I appreciate it. So on Tuesday, September 24th, we received 3 bids for the ceiling, lighting, PA, and piping system replacement project for this building, Huntington North High School. The 3 bids came from Allen County Builders, Brown & Brown General Construction, or General Contractors, and Pridemark Construction. The most responsive, and lowest bid came from Allen County Builders, with a total of, their base bid was $4,544,000. I do want to note that we had bid the PA system in this project as a separate line item, and we're going to pull that out of this project and bid it separate. And that project's actually going to go out to bid next week. So we're going to focus on a more advanced PA system for the building. So we pulled that out. So tonight, Board, I come to you recommending that we accept the bid from Allen County Builders in the amount of $4,544,000.
Okay, and just to be clear, we are not doing any of the deduct alternates, correct?
Came in on budget, so we did not have to take anything out of the project. So correct, no deduct alternates.
Great. Okay, would anybody like to make a motion on item G1?
I make a motion, we award the HNHS ceiling, lighting, and piping project bid as presented.
Thank you, Tim, and is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Matt. Does anybody have any questions or comments on this item?
Kevin, I'd just like to add, I want to thank Terry and his team. They have truly been the best I've worked with in terms of getting the projects in front of us and making sure that Huntington North and this overall project is receiving the absolute best in service that we can get, including the budget. So I appreciate all of his work.
Thank you, Mr. Burbank.
Yes, thank you, Terry. I'd also like to point out that we are going to vote on this bid, and the lowest contractor is a local Huntington contractor. So that's always a great thing. Any other questions?
I just want to say thanks, Terry, for your work with this. This has gone really well. Could you explain just a little bit of the scope of a $4.5 million bid for ceilings?
Sure, right. This building's pretty big, so it's a majority of the building ceilings and lights that are original to the building from 6970. There's piping replacement as well. That piping is piping that goes down most of the corridor that goes down to athletics, and it's original as well. So we're going to replace all of that piping during the summer, next summer, and get all those things done. Lighting will all be LED. Ceilings will be very similar to this ceiling. It's the same ceiling, but just a bigger tile, 2x4 instead of 2x2. So it should look phenomenal. It'll be so bright in here, we won't know what to do. So really looking forward. It's going to dress up the building. I think it's going to look amazing. So should be great.
So what areas, Terry, just as a reminder for the community, will we be doing then for this project?
It's easier to answer what areas are we not going to be
Okay,
doing.
that's the answer to that question.
So obviously areas that we've already done, like this space, we're going to exclude the library space because it will become a separate project at some point. The art room will be separate at some point. And then what we call the newer
West Science
wing.
now,
West
West
Science, I don't know what, so from the 80s when I was here. So West Science, we excluded as well, and the field house we excluded because it's fairly new. So, and the arena already has LED.
So basically, the hallways, the classrooms, I mean, this will be something that will touch this, what I call the academic end of the building, pretty heavily then.
It will.
Okay, thank you.
Board, on a note, Mr. McLaughlin will be working with contractor Terry, myself, as they work on blocks of 2 and 4 classrooms. There will be about a 2-week time period where those class will have a different classroom, which we have available in this building. So as they work through this project in the year and classes get moved from time to time, they will have appropriate classroom space, and it will be a short-term move as they go in and out of classrooms.
Okay. Does anybody else have a question or comment? Hearing none, we will vote on item G1. And that item passes 5-0. Thank you, Terry. We'll move on to item G2, Lincoln Farm Ground Lease Agreement for 2025.
Yes, I'm recommending for your approval the agreement that you will find in your board packet with Mr. Colin Suchicki. Colin has been farming this ground recently, has done a great job. It's 32 acres. It's a 1-year agreement that you'll notice there for the price of $190 per tillable acre. So I'm recommending your approval of that 1-year agreement.
Thank you. Is there a motion for the Lincoln Farm Ground lease?
Motion to approve the Lincoln Farm Ground cash lease agreement for 2025.
Thank you. And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments? Hearing none, we will vote. And that motion passes 5-0. We'll move on to item H1, items of discussion by board members.
Mr. Yarger, although I'm not a board member, I would like to draw attention to, from time to time, I'm reminded of the amount of time our board puts in with children and with the school and the job that you do. Every board member up here and our previous board members in my past 3 years at Huntington truly go out of their way with a kids first attitude. You don't get enough recognition for that, and your job is challenging, and I would like to thank personally tonight and professionally. Since I got here, I get a invite from time to time, and he's not aware I'm going to thank him, but I'm going to do it in front of everyone. Mr. Allen reaches out to me to invite me to my favorite Friday of the year. And that Friday includes an invitation to go to Horace Mann, where Mr. Allen and some of his team work with our Essential Skills kid in a wonderful T-ball game. And it is my best 45 minutes of each year, I'll be honest with you. I love the job I do, but I'm reminded by your passion as a board for children. And sometimes we get very, very busy, and we're all in challenging jobs from time to time. But Mr. Allen, professionally and personally, I want to thank you on behalf of what you do. You're a great reminder to Jay, John, and I, and our principals and our school community of putting kids first, prioritizing time, and making sure that we go out of our way for those kids to have a special day from time to time. So your work with our Essential Skills at Horace Mann, Your enthusiasm for children is contagious, and I appreciate all you do.
Thank you, Mr. Brimberry. That is a program that I began when I was back at the Y, as sports director at the Y about 20 years ago. Just a sports program for children with disability. I'm a baseball guy, I'm a sports guy, so it was a little selfish. I just wanted to play ball with somebody. You find out real quick that when you don't participate, you're missing out. So since I left the Y and I'm director of dispatch for Huntington County, I reached out to the schools and asked them if I could come and play at their special needs classes, their essential skills classes. And they were excited, and so a couple times in the fall and a couple times in the spring, we played baseball for about 45 minutes, and I get to announce and pitch and holler. So it's a selfish thing for me, but it is a lot of fun. So I'll invite more people, and you're certainly all welcome to come. We could use the fans.
I will tell you, Mr. Yarger, the Yankee jersey's a bit much for me, but we do show up anyway.
I'm glad you can put that aside. Thank you, Mr. Brimberry, and thank you, Mr. Allen. Does anybody else have anything for this evening?
Hi, I know I'm not a board member either. I am Isaiah. I'm the ministry coordinator with United with Love. I'm joined here today by Christy, who works with the city, and we were under the impression that we were able to talk to you tonight about the community garden project and maybe using the Kriegbaum space for that. Was I wrong about that impression?
Well, I wouldn't say you're wrong. Here's what we'll do is that we will put something together, okay, for that. I'll get a hold of you and work with you, okay? I know how to get a hold of you, and so we'll get a school board presentation drafted up for the next school board meeting. I knew you were going to come to one of the upcoming ones. I just didn't know which one you wanted to come to, so that's on me. But we will definitely get something.
All righty, thank you.
But no, that's no problem. Put together with the board so we could do that. So I do want them to understand what you guys are putting together. I think it's pretty awesome, and what we could potentially do for our community with that. And so we'll get connected here the next couple of days and get something put together, okay?
All righty, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you. If there's nothing else, I will take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
And a second? Thank you. And all those in favor, say aye. Aye. And those opposed? And we're adjourned.